Yeah, never mind. I think 2 is good.
Going to call the May 19th meeting of the City Council of Wayne to order. If I could, everybody please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the
flag of the United States of America, to the republic
for which it stands, a nation,
under God,
God,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty
and justice for all.
Before we do the roll call, I just wanted to mention a couple quick things. Some real positive things that are going on. We've got 2 of our firefighters that have come back to work. So just so that everybody knows that. So we're starting to see a positive or negative tests. So that's very positive that we're starting to get some of our firefighters back, which welcome them back. And I know we're praying for the ones that are still going through the COVID. And then the second thing is today is our last day of our Veterans Memorial, and we've exceeded the limit on the $30,000 match. So we are at $35,000. So that's going to be $65,000 worth of funds for the memorial. So that's a real great thing. That's to start our meeting with. And honoring our veterans, and just very positive to see that kind of support within the community. So with that, can we go ahead and have a roll call?
Mayor Reese?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Porter?
Here.
Councilman Miller? Oh, you're muted there, Councilman Miller.
Okay, is that better?
Yes.
Present.
Thank you. Councilman Webster?
Here.
Councilman Dowd?
Here.
Councilwoman Skiff?
here.
Councilman Wagner?
Here.
Quorum is present. The next item on the agenda is for a moment of silence for all those who have lost their lives to the COVID-19 virus.
I need to add to that, that's before we take the moment of silence, that we've had 2 more residents that were reported tonight that lost their lives. So we're now at 21 residents that have passed from COVID-19. And we had 8 new cases today that were reported in the city. So we still need to be careful and be very mindful of what's going on. If we go ahead and take up one silence. Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is to approve the agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any questions from council?
Into that.
I have a motion that I'd like to see if I can get somebody to make from off of this, and then second this. And the reason why is we need to suspend the rules at the beginning. We talked about this in 2 meetings ago, and so that we have a space for people to ask questions that are on the agenda at the beginning of the meeting. So I had the city clerk put together a motion for me. So I'm gonna read that. If I can get get somebody to do that, and then a support for this, if that's what the council chooses. But I think it makes a lot of sense to be able to do that. And then with this approval, it will be on the agenda through all these virtual meetings, so that people understand when they see the agenda that they're going to have an opportunity to speak. That will suspend the rules through this for these video conference Zoom meetings. That is just a constant thing on the agenda. But the motion would be to suspend the rules of policies and procedures of the city council meetings to allow for questions from the public regarding items on the agenda to be submitted after approval of minutes and before presentations for this meeting and each meeting going forward, while the governor's executive orders are in place regarding virtual meetings of the city council.
So moved.
Can I get a support for that?
I'll support.
Dowd.
Okay.
Okay, so we had a motion on the floor, though, to approve the agenda.
So do we have to have the person that did it amend, or do we just,
Well, I think that that motion can be a separate motion, correct? Mike, do you agree? And
Yeah.
then we can approve the agenda.
so we do this motion first because it's going to change the agenda
If
first?
you revise the agenda, then you would vote to approve the revised agenda.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye. Oh, we have to do roll
We
call.
need to do.
Oh, yeah,
it.
sorry.
Roll.
Just so used to having the old school way of doing a meeting.
The motion made by Wagner and supported by Webster was to approve the revised agenda, suspending the rules and policies of the city council meetings to provide for comments from the public on items on the agenda for this meeting and going forward while we're still doing virtual meetings. So I'll do the roll call. Mayor Pro Tem Porter,
Yes.
Councilman Miller,
Yes.
Councilman Webster,
Yes.
Councilwoman Skiff.
I just have a question, if that's okay. Where would this be placed on the agenda? Is it before we approve? I'm not really sure where this is gonna fall on the agenda, where the comments are.
I think that it would go before, I mean, it would go after, like, after the approval of the minutes and before presentations.
Okay. Yes.
Councilman Wagner,
Yes.
Councilman Dowd,
Yes.
and Mayor Racy.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item number 2 on the agenda is the city council minutes, regular meeting of May 5th, 2020.
Move to approve. Or Dowd.
Questions? Roll call?
Mayor Pro Tem Porter,
Yes.
Councilman Miller,
Yes.
Councilman Webster,
Yes.
Councilwoman Skiff,
Yes.
Councilman Wagner,
Yes.
Councilman Dowd. Was that a guess? Did I
Yes.
get that? Okay, and then Mayor Racy.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Item number 3 is presentations, 3A being,
We're going to add that other thing before that, correct?
oh, I'm sorry, yes, I already blew it there. So I didn't have any questions that were emailed to me or called in, so unless there's somebody in the audience viewing.
Now, are they able to raise their hands out here? So Mike, are we able to just have people raise their hand from the attendees? And then we just ask the people that are on their telephones?
Yeah, I think that's how you handle public comment.
Okay, I just wondered, because we've gone through and asked each person, but do we have to really do that?
How many people have their phone numbers?
There's no phone numbers out here right now.
Also, nobody's checked in. Nobody's watching.
I've got one person that has raised their hand.
Okay, I guess I would ask that person.
Okay.
Yeah, if depending on the number, your past practice has been to go through them, but if there's, I guess the question is, do they know that they have to raise their hand and be recognized?
Right. I mean, I could tell from the other one, it looks like they're all our people, other than one person I don't know that doesn't have a last name. So,
Okay.
I think that if they are calling in, their number would appear there.
right.
You don't recognize it as being one of the participant or the attendees here. But if they're doing that through the app or on the computer, they do have that option to raise their hand.
Yes.
So you would see that they had a raised hand.
Okay, then I'll just proceed with the raised hands that you see.
Mayor Racy,
Yep.
in light that we have just changed the timing of the meeting, can we make an exception that if anyone does come on, that we give them that opportunity to be able to ask a question?
We haven't done it in the last two meetings. There's no reason to do that. I mean,
Well, this is our first time we're starting at 7, isn't it?
yeah, but we haven't done it the other two Zoom meetings. That's the whole point of not doing that. We're going to still do it for the public hearing. But other than that, we wouldn't do that.
And there's going to be public comment at the end of the meeting too.
Correct. So they're going to have multiple times to talk. I'm going to go ahead and I've got two people. Good evening. You're live now. Do you have a public question for the council meeting? Could you give your name and where you live, please?
Yes, Rami, live in the city of Birmingham.
Good evening, Rami. You have a question for the council?
So far not yet. I'm just listening in, letting you guys going through the roll call of each part of the agenda so far.
Okay, yeah, if you have questions that are anything going to be on the agenda, you want to ask it now because we're not going to ask questions through the meeting.
Okay, well then I'll just come out with it. I am the partner to Paul Russo, another gentleman at Wayne Relief. My main part of this agenda that I'm paying attention to is seeing if the city ordinance will be amended for allowing rec into the city of Wayne.
Okay. Any comment, opinion, or that's it?
Just waiting to kind of listen in and seeing which way the city's going to sway into.
Okay. Well, thank you for your comment tonight.
You're welcome.
Good evening, Jody. Did you have a comment for the agenda?
Just a quick procedural one. I wanted to make a suggestion when you're asking people to raise their hands to indicate that it's hitting that raise hand button on their screen, because I was in a different meeting where people were actually raising their physical hands, thinking that we could see them on the video. So
yeah, see, I don't
suggestion there.
Yeah. I just have the button to lower everybody's hand because of being a host. So, okay, thank you. Anybody else that want to raise their hand? Okay, seeing none, let's go ahead and move the agenda.
Okay, item number 3A is presentations. 3A is presentation, budget municipal employees retirement system update. Katie Sample and Brian Camilleri.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
Brian, do you want to start with the cash flow analysis that you worked on?
Sure.
And I'll talk about what I did with the Merce payment.
Okay. So later this evening, you'll be looking at the prepared and presented budget document, which has the end result is a bottom line loss for the next fiscal year of $3.8 million. Our projection right now is that for 2020, fiscal year ending June 30, 2020, you're going to end up with zero fund balance. But fund balance is not the same as cash. So included in zero fund balance, that's the net of any assets that you would have, cash, investments, receivables, netted against accounts payable and other liabilities. So even though fund balance is zero, you can have that number without having cash in the bank, and actually having negative cash, because there are receivables that you're going to get after year end that are counted toward fund balance as of June 30th. So we prepared a cash flow projection to see what does the city's general fund cash look like between now and June 30th, and then again through the next fiscal year ending June 30, 2021. The reason why we're doing this is because we want to know if and when general fund runs out of cash, and so that we can stop paying certain expenses to conserve what cash we have, or end up borrowing from other funds of the city. So based on the projection, you're running low on general fund cash right now. And by the end of the current fiscal year, you would be borrowing cash from other funds. That's okay, because you'll have property taxes coming back in after July 1. But if we're really looking out over the next 1 year and 6 weeks till the end of your next fiscal year, $3.8 million budget deficit is more like $4.5 million cash deficit. And your property taxes don't historically come in right on July 1. They come in pretty heavy August and into September. So don't want to steal Katie's thunder at all on this, but what needs to happen is for the city to start being very selective today with what bills you're going to pay, because we don't want the cash balance to run down too far in the short term. Like, when I say short term, I mean in the next couple months. But the long-term strategy over the next year plus requires you to judgmentally select what vendors not to pay, and then end up in a judgment levy. The alternative would be to internally finance the general fund through the other funds, in the hopes that perhaps a 345 millage would pass. But if that weren't to happen, you're already down a couple $1 million of cash by the end of November. And then you wouldn't have as many options for shorting payments. So teeing that up, the idea really is the right thing to do for right now strategically is to start shorting MERS. And with that, I'll then turn it over to Katie.
Yes, and that is what we decided we need to do for the cash, is shorting MERS. So our MERS payments are usually $500,000 a month, and we're only going to be paying 25% of that payment per month going forward, depending on how things look, but that's what it is right now. Our next payment's due tomorrow, so I've already scheduled that payment to be made tomorrow at 25%. So our payment for tomorrow is $484,000. We're paying $121,000. Part of what we're paying with that is I can apply it in the invoice to different divisions and different things that we're paying. It's not just one invoice that just applies to everything. So I applied it towards the employee contributions, because we're taking those in. So I'm making sure that's getting applied to the employees. I also applied it to library or any other funds that aren't general fund. And then I applied it towards the funds that have the lowest percent funded. So that's where the 121,000 went. And we're going to plan a meeting with MERS probably tomorrow or soon to let them know what we're doing.
So this does not change the fact that you still have the two options. You still have the option of Public Act 345 millage to put that on the ballot, or just going into the judgment levy directly. It doesn't take away that option. If you were successful with passing a 345, the proceeds from that millage would be used to pay back MERS. So it is possible that you could still go down that path. That will be up to council whether or not it wants to put that on. But strategically, we're trying to smooth the pain out so that you can still continue to operate, not drain water and sewer, not drain the road funds, borrowing from water and sewer is permissible, but you have to pay it back. And you still need the revenue source, whether it's 345 or a judgment, to do that. You can't borrow from the road funds. MDOT frowns on that. And I can cite instances of other communities that have done it and then been penalized and had future years worth of revenue taken away from them. So we're going to treat roads like it's its own little island, its own silo. We're not going to borrow from the road funds because we don't want to jeopardize future revenue. Any questions on this?
Hey, Racy, I do. You mentioned about a cash flow analysis. Is this an updated analysis as a result of the virus-triggered recession? We're projecting to now see less revenue as a result of us being 9 weeks into this?
No, actually, this has nothing to do with COVID. This is taking the budget that you're going to pass and breaking it into cash receipts and cash disbursements and trying to get the months correct. Because some months your revenue is greater than others, some months expenses are greater than others. So the result from COVID is going to have to be baked back into the cash flow projection. At the same time, we bring you a budget amendment. So there's new information coming out on COVID seemingly every day. The state just updated the revenue projections for state shared revenue, and it was too soon before this meeting to change your budget. So the request later will be to pass the budget as is, knowing that there are going to be COVID and other adjustments and amendments coming soon. Normally, we only amend the budget on about a quarterly basis. We're not going to stick to that schedule. We're going to do it as we have better information. So you may get amendments in back-to-back meetings and then not have one for a couple months. But we want to make sure that the city has the best information at all times to make the decisions that you have to make.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, let's go ahead and move the agenda.
Okay, item number 4 is public hearings. 4A, public hearing to consider the proposed fiscal year 2020-2021 budget. And we'll just need you, Mayor, to
Open the
announce the public hearing is open.
The public hearing is now open for the proposed fiscal year 2020-2021 budget. If you have any questions or want to comment on the public hearing, please raise your hand in the attendee area at this time. And that's at the bottom of your screen in your attendee area.
Mayor,
Yes.
I was texted and I was told that if they are calling in, if they press *9, it'll help them to raise, it'll show you raising their hand. I don't know if that was
Okay.
explained.
Okay.
And then 6 to unmute themselves.
And start, and what is it to unmute themselves?
*6.
*6?
Mhm.
Okay, if anybody's calling in, you can hit *9 and that will raise your hand so I can see you. Okay. Jody?
Hello. I just wanted to point out in the library portion, which is Fund 271, there is a slight difference between the submitted or the requested budget and the recommended budget. The library board actually did review this at their last meeting on May 13th and approved the recommended budget. So that very last column of the recommended budget has been approved by the library board.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there anybody else that would have anything for the public hearing that you would like to comment on the budget? Please raise your hand now. Okay. Seeing none, can I get a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second. Wagner.
Okay, we get a roll call?
Mayor Pro Tem Porter,
Yes.
Councilman Miller,
Yes.
Councilman Webster,
Yes.
Councilwoman Skiff,
Yes.
Councilman Wagner,
Yes.
Councilman Dowd,
Yes.
Mayor Racy.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item number 5, general items. 5A, approval of proposed fiscal year 2020-2021 budget, millage rates and water rates.
What's your counsel?
Move to approve.
I'm sorry, who made that motion?
Wagner.
There, okay.
And was there a support or somebody, was that Jeremiah?
I'll support it.
I thought I heard two.
Hey, Racy.
Yes.
Hey, wouldn't we be voting separately for the budget and the water rates separately?
I think everything's all together according to, with the budget, everything's in the budget.
That is correct.
Any other questions? Okay, roll call vote, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Porter,
Yes.
Councilman Miller,
No.
Councilman Webster,
Yes.
Councilwoman Skiff,
Sorry, yes.
Councilman Wagner,
Yes.
Councilman Dowd,
We didn't hear you, Kevin.
that was a yes.
I think so. I think your audio is kind of weak, or there's something wrong with your audio, Kevin.
Could you
Councilman Dowd.
nod? We can't hear you. Yes, thank
Okay.
you. Mayor Racy,
Yes.
motion carries. Item 5B, approval of the purchase of a Leica total station for the police department in the amount of $23,648.48 to be entirely funded by the Byrne grant.
Move to approve.
Support.
Do we need,
Tina, did you get that?
I got motion by Skiff, supported by Miller.
okay.
Um,
Is Chief Strong here, or do we have any questions?
Yes, I'm here if anyone has any questions, sir.
Okay. Do you want to explain this, Chief?
Yes, sir. It's part of the $76,000 Byrne Technology Grant for 2019, 2020. There's limited type of items you can purchase with this. So after some consideration, we went with this Leica total station. It's basically for investigating serious injury traffic crashes. It can also be used at complicated crime scenes. The one we have now is somewhere in the neighborhood of 22 or 23 years old. The life expectancy on these are about 15 years. So it'll be helpful to the department.
Any other questions from the council?
I have a question, but I think Chief Strong probably knows.
2 years, sir.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Any other questions? Roll call vote, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Porter,
Yes.
Councilman Miller,
Yes.
Councilman Webster,
That was a yes.
Councilwoman Skiff,
Yes.
Councilman Wagner,
Yes.
Councilman Dowd,
Yes.
Mayor Racy,
Yes.
motion carries. Item 5C is approval of the purchase of a Vericom sensor for the police department in the amount of $3,250 to be entirely funded by the Byrne grant.
Move to approve.
Support.
Okay, got that?
Motion by Wagner, approved by, or supported by Skiff.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, Chief Strong?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, this is related to the total sensor. It's used for traffic crash investigations. It helps determine speed. I'll add, when I went through traffic investigation school 20 some years ago, you determine speed by filling a tire with cement and letting it dry, and then you hook that to a meat scale, and that determined the drag coefficients on the roadway. Now they have this computer doohickey that does it.
Isn't cement cheaper? I'm just kidding.
Oh, yes.
I can get you some tires.
Well, it's a grant, sir.
I'm just kidding.
Mayor Racy,
Yes.
if I could ask a question here. Does every community, every police department have this kind of equipment that is necessary, needed?
Yes, Councilman Miller. Many area communities have it. I mentioned our equipment was, over 20 years old. So we've been essentially borrowing it from other communities, mainly Redford and Southgate. But, it's kind of like you can only ask to borrow your neighbor to borrow a cup of sugar so many times before they tell you to get your own sugar.
And I just have to ask, I kind of assumed that this would be something that the Michigan State Police would be handling. Why are we doing it at a local level?
So for a time after budget cuts, we were having the state police handle it, but they're just no longer able to help us with all of our crashes anymore. But we did try that for a while, but it's just not an option anymore.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Chief. Roll call, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Porter,
Yes.
Councilman Miller,
Yes.
Councilman Webster,
Yes.
Councilwoman Skiff,
Yes.
Councilman Wagner,
Yes.
Councilman Dowd,
Yes.
Mayor Racy,
Yes.
motion carries. Item 5D is approval of directing, the city attorney to prepare amendments to the city ordinances for council consideration to allow for licensing of recreational marijuana establishments in the city consistent with the Planning Commission resolution of March 10th, 2020.
Move to approve.
Support.
Was that motion by Miller and supported by Webster?
Yes.
You?
I can have our Community Development Director. Want to go ahead and explain what's happening tonight? Good evening.
Absolutely, thank you. Good evening, Mayor, members of council. On March 10th, the Planning Commission had conversation in regards to recreational or adult use marijuana. It was made aware to them, one of the members made them aware that other communities have not opted in and are facing a situation where they may be forced to have marijuana locations and perhaps locations they don't want through a ballot initiative. This is sort of, if I can, something I've been working on with Mayor Pro Tem Porter, and something that he feels very strongly about, in the sense that there are a couple opportunities here, whether you're in favor of marijuana or you're not in favor of marijuana. Bottom line is, the city of Wayne residents overwhelmingly voted in support of recreational use marijuana. Why would we want them going to Inkster or Westland to spend their money if we can provide them an opportunity to do business right here in their own city? Now, the Planning Commission would like to see, if possible, that only the current medical marijuana licensing facilities are allowed to apply for a recreational license. What would that look like? We currently have 4 what we call provisioning centers where marijuana is sold to medical patients with cards. We would like to give them the opportunity to also offer the same product as an adult use product, I should say, at their location for individuals that do not have a card, thus not increasing the number of recreational or facilities, I should say, within the city. We also have proposed 2 grows, a processor, and a testing facility. We would also like to offer them the opportunity to have recreational product, test it, and grow it. Now, what does this look like financially for the city of Wayne? We can't count on the state of Michigan in regards to an allocation. We really can't. So I don't even want you to think about that aspect of things. However, by opting into recreational marijuana, it does make us eligible should they determine that they are going to allocate money to the municipalities that have issued recreational licenses. That would give us, if we do it, all 8, we have one of them on the phone today from Relief, all 8 of our current license holders have contacted me and indicated that they would like to opt into recreation or apply for a recreational license. Now, financially, $40,000 would be a given. Every year, each of those 8 facilities have to pay $40,000 for a recreation license. They also have to pay the $5,000 for their medical license. So that would be an $80,000 given, no ifs, ands, or buts about it, influx of income into the general fund. Now, the Planning Commission did ask you to consider this and to consider allowing the city attorney to look at the act, how things are written in the act, and what we are allowed to do in regards to issuing the recreational licenses. So with that, I can take any questions, Mr. Mayor. It's pretty clear cut that we do have a willingness of not only our residents, but our business owners to move forward in this endeavor.
Okay. Questions from council? Councilman Wagner?
Yeah, thank you. I just want to say that I really respect the planning commission and the discussion, the hard discussions they had on this, and I respect their opinion. I'll respect everybody's opinion that they have on this. I understand all of the reasons in favor of recreational marijuana in our city. I, however, cannot vote in favor of it. So that's just my opinion. Thanks.
Hey, Racy, I do have a question.
Yes.
Now, this is a new revenue stream for the city. Okay, while it's not as large as the 345 that would possibly be imposed on the residents, I would ask that it be considered that this money be used for our MERS payment. So we can start establishing a steady stream of paying that debt.
Okay, well,
Instead of being just put into the general fund and gets lost in the shuffle.
that's where all the money goes. But
Well, that's where our problem is.
no, that's not where our problem is.
I disagree.
Well,
But at any rate, I'm asking that within this consideration that we designate this new revenue stream to specifically address our MERS payment to help offset the impact that it's going to increase on our taxpayers.
okay, this is $40,000 we're talking about at the moment.
I thought she said 80.
That's the other one that we already have, that's already in, that we're already collecting. This is
And that's a good combination to put in.
We pay all of our bills. Anybody else? Yes. Councilman Dowd, and then I'll go to Councilman Webster.
Can you hear me fine?
Yes.
Just to understand, if I'm currently a medicinal grow, I can only then opt and start a recreational grow. I can't do, we're not gonna, if I'm if I'm a medicinal grow, I want to open up a recreational licensed cell. It has to be, I'm assuming we're going to go with an apples to apples licensing, medicinal, recreational, not a
That is
combination.
correct, Councilman Dowd. It would have to be the same license type.
But we're not going to have more. We're not going to have an offset. We're just going to have basically a duplication at best.
Yes.
There would still only be 4 provisioning
Locations.
centers and 4 of the other license types that we have in place. And as I mentioned, if I can again, we do have the city attorney looking into that to make sure that that is totally allowable under the act. But yes, that is our goal, and that was the intent of the Planning Commission. No new locations.
All right. So footprint has to fit the demand, the scope of the job. If it means that they need another location, that's outside of the legal expectation.
Yeah,
Correct?
that's correct. So if let's just use Holistic Health, for example, on Michigan Avenue. If they decided that they wanted to do recreational sales, it's called retail, it would have to happen in that same building. They can't say, oh, we're going to extend into our back building. It would have to be in that same building.
All right. Just that helps me
You're
out.
absolutely
a lot.
correct, sir.
Okay.
Councilman Webster.
So through the chair, so if I understood this correctly, you were saying, Ms. Gowan, that other cities are facing lawsuits and other things because they have not opted in. So would this potentially protect us if we did opt in today from lawsuits or other things for people looking for recreational, since we've already done this, or what does that do for us?
I think I may have misspoke. If I said lawsuits, I do apologize. I meant ballot initiatives.
Or
So I think I said the wrong thing. I apologize. So what has happened is residents that approved overwhelmingly, such as ours did, what they have to do is and Mr. Porter, I'll let you address that if you don't mind, a small percentage of signatures to put a ballot question before the voters in the city of Wayne. And basically that ballot initiative could say, we want all the gas stations to be able to sell marijuana. We want all the party stores to be able to sell marijuana. And we want an unlimited number of grows and secure transports. If that passes, we have no local control. We want to preemptively do a preemptive strike and provide the residents with an opportunity to purchase their product here so they don't have to go that route, and it maintains the integrity of our businesses.
That's exactly what I was looking for. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Anybody else? Councilwoman Skiff.
So do you have an idea as to how many people in our city are actually not able to get recreational marijuana in our city?
No. I wouldn't have any way of
Do you
knowing
have
that.
any idea what the demand is?
Yes, I do. I'm glad you asked that question.
Okay.
And one of the owners of Relief is on the phone right now. I found out that the first week that they were open for curbside, which was last week, they turned 100 cars away the first week of individuals that thought that they were recreational, turned around and they went right down to Inkster to Flower Bowl. Anytime you drive by Flower Bowl, there's 20 to 25 cars lined up to purchase product. So there is a demand.
Right, but that's not necessarily citizens in our city. You have no idea where these people came from.
Actually, that's not necessarily true. The individuals at Relief did ask people how they heard about them. Did they live in Wayne? And I do know for a fact that there were Wayne residents in line to purchase recreational. But I mean, there's no way of knowing. It'd be just like, how many people walked into a party store that only had beer and wine and they wanted alcohol? They wanted Tito's. Mm-hmm. We don't know if that happens in stores that have just beer and wine. So
right, and
no
we're
really
trusting the word of somebody who wants to get in on recreational marijuana right now for our numbers. I have no other questions.
Mayor.
Mayor. Yep. Mayor Pro Tem.
Lori pretty well covered the first fact that I was going to give, and that is that adult use marijuana, their products are for sale in the city, or for sale in the state. It's legal through the state laws. But the second point, the second fact that I want to make is recreational marijuana, adult use marijuana passed in the city of Wayne almost 2-to-1 margin. So you could throw some of those away and say, well, they just didn't care. I voted for it. I've never used marijuana in my life. I never will. But I voted for it because I felt it was fair to let the other people use it if that's what they see fit to use. To think that even have, let's say 500,000 of those people would rather drive to Inkster, drive to Ann Arbor, drive to Westland to get their marijuana than get it here is ludicrous. They want it here. I have heard, the majority of people I have heard from are pro-marijuana people, and they've been beating on me quite successfully for a number of months, ever since adult use marijuana went in, and I put them off, and said, let's get the laws and let's get the emergency rules at least in play, which we have done now. Lori's done a great job studying on this. I've worked on it. My personal opinion doesn't count here. And I wish the council people that are using their beliefs and their personal thoughts would step away from their own thoughts and think what their constituents want. 2-to-1, they wanted recreational marijuana. When I sat up here years ago and said, let's do away with health care for our retirees, that was the hardest decision I ever made in my life. Being a loyal union person, it was extremely hard. But I went against my own beliefs because it was for the betterment of the city. Some people need to start thinking for the betterment of the city rather than their own personal agendas. Thank you, that's all.
Mary, see, I'd like to ask, I just want to be clear that every single license aspect of the marijuana industry, growing, testing, selling, etc. Each of those licenses would have the right to be able to apply for a license for recreational. Is that my understanding?
Councilman Miller, yes, sir. That is our goal, is that only those who have a medical license will have the ability to apply for our recreational license. So you are correct, sir.
One thing I want to point out here is that I think it is important for us to protect the residents in this community that choose not to use marijuana at all, or have it, influence their family per se. Okay, whatever their beliefs are. I think it's important for us as a community that we provide a safe commerce for those that choose to use marijuana, and for also those that do not choose to. And I think this is important for us to have this ordinance in place, because I certainly would not want to see this in every corner of a gas station. And then it makes me wonder about, well, for them to do something like that, there's got to be some sort of guidelines of separating. I don't want underage individuals being interacting into this. Okay, I think I'm just saying, I think it's important that we do have something in place that we are protecting the ones that choose not to. I don't have to be exposed to. Perhaps, and I'll just make an example. I personally don't care for the idea of going into a gas station and seeing a bunch of smoke pipes there. Okay, it's not my thing. Maybe it's somebody else's, but it does kind of put me off, quite frankly. Okay, So that's why I think that having an ordinance will protect those that, we can keep these things separate, but opportunity for each choices to be taken.
Okay. Councilman Wagner.
Thank you. Just wanted to respond to Mayor Pro Tem Porter's comments. This goes beyond a personal thing with me. I am thinking about the city in every way that I vote. And in my opinion, this is not the best way to lead the city forward. Getting an additional $40,000 in revenue is not going to do much to a $3.8 million deficit. I don't think this is the way to go. And in terms of the argument that allowing the 8 current businesses this license and only them might take away the incentive for doing a ballot initiative where all businesses could sell it, it's not a guarantee. And we could get that ballot initiative anyway. If we could get that guarantee that this would stop the ballot initiative so that forever and ever only those 8 businesses could sell recreational, I'd be more in favor of it. But that's not the case. We could have a ballot initiative anyway. And
That is correct.
That's why to me that I'm still against it.
Okay. Any other questions? Because I have a couple things I want to say. Councilwoman Skiff.
Yes, I'm sorry. If it's okay, if Lori could just please explain to me one more time how she came up with the extra $40,000 for if this were to be adopted. If we did allow recreational in our city, where she got the number of the extra $40,000.
So each of the 8 applicants pays $5,000 for the license.
Mm-hmm.
So that would give us 8 times 5. That would be $40,000 for recreational licenses and 40 in medical licenses, for a total of 80,000 in just licensing fees.
Oh, okay. So, I'm sorry. Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Mayor Racy, one thing before you do share your comments, I have to ask Lori, will we receive any additional funds from this for each transaction?
So, very good question. Right now, the state, if you remember, and I know Councilman Miller, you were part of these conversations as well. When we opted into medical initially, we thought that we were going to get revenue. But then they came out with language that said, well, if the state approves recreational, then the medical people will not get any cut of the pie, so to speak. Right now, it is proposed that those municipalities that have issued recreational licenses will get a percentage of sales. I really had hoped to have some numbers for you, Councilman Miller, but I was told by several organizations, Lara, Michigan Municipal League, that it's a little premature to come out with numbers, but I can tell you the sales are astronomical and they only stand to get larger. So if we were in on the beginning as one of the cities that come in and they do release revenue and there aren't as many recreational licenses given out, that first year we may get a little more than subsequent years once everybody realizes that there could be some financial gain. But again, I just want to say nothing's ever a guarantee, but yes, there's a possibility, sir.
I have to ask, and this is a long shot, could we as a municipality on our own impose an additional surcharge per transaction?
I'm going to defer to the city attorney, but I believe the answer to that is absolutely not. But Mr. Bosnick?
That would be no.
Just wanted to make sure.
So I have something that I'd like to actually I don't know, we would have to add it to the motion or it would be a separate motion that I need somebody to make and second. And I can have the city attorney or Ms. Goen speak on this. My understanding is there's also an opportunity that we can look at a community benefits plan and create a community benefits plan for nonprofits, that it's a percentage, like a 1%. I'm not exactly sure. Lansing has one. I saw a document about this, but I'd like to have some research done with that to see if we could add that into this, that there would be some type of community benefits plan to see some benefit to our community for our nonprofits. Ms. Goen?
Yeah, would you like me to kind of explain that, Mayor Racy?
Yes, please.
Yes. So, some other municipalities that opted into recreational marijuana put this in place, and apparently it is allowable as part of their approval of their license. And because we've already approved them for a license, it doesn't make it like they're showing any favor by making a donation, but they would be required to, maybe it's a set amount that they donate a year or 1% of their sales. You could negotiate that with the business owner, but they would be given a list of nonprofit organizations and what their mission is. So we've got in town, the Lions Club. We have several nonprofits, Main Street, the Rotary. We have several different nonprofits that we would have a list for those business owners. Their mission would be listed, and that individual, that business owner, could choose what business or what nonprofit, they would like to make a donation to each year. So the city's not involved in any way, shape, or form with the donation. It's just a requirement that we put on them that they give back to the nonprofits in our community. And if I forgot any nonprofits, which I'm sure I did, I apologize.
Mr. Bosnick, is that legal? Because I was sort of alluding to that same premise as Mayor Racy just spoke on.
May I respond, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
There are community benefit ordinances that a number of communities in Michigan have enacted. I know Lansing has one, as the mayor indicated. Pontiac either has enacted one or they're in the process of doing so. That's something I've been looking at a little bit. I don't think you need to pass a resolution or anything. I'll try to prepare some more paperwork on that and give the council an option at a subsequent board meeting if it's an avenue that the council wants to go down.
So do we need to add that into the motion, or we're
No.
just good that you could look into it? Okay.
I've already been looking into it a little bit, so I'll just prepare like a memo or something for council at a future meeting for you to review.
Councilman Wagner.
Yeah, I just had one more question. If there was a ballot initiative that went through to legalize recreation or the sale of recreational marijuana here in Wayne, what happens to the zoning ordinances on that? Do they just not apply to recreation, or can they still be enforced somehow?
Pretty much, I'll take a shot at that, Mr. Bosnick. It's my understanding that if it says it can be in gas stations, it can be in gas stations. If we have the ability to control where marijuana is sold, that has to be 1,000 foot or 500 feet from residential, that's great. But I don't know if we would have that control. So, Mr. Bosnick, do you happen to know the answer to that?
There can't be a conflict with the Zoning and Enabling Act, so it would have to depend on the language. For example, you can't pass you wouldn't be able to pass a ballot initiative that says that you can have marijuana in, any square foot in the city, for example, or in a church, or in a school. It has to comport with the Zoning Enabling Act, and that would be if there was a ballot initiative that ran afoul of the Zoning Enabling Act, the city would likely challenge it and likely prevail in court to have it disallowed. We had that issue come up in one of the communities we represent, where there's a ballot initiative relative to marijuana that, in our view, ran afoul of the Zoning Enabling Act because of the way it was drafted and the way it was proposed to the voters. But because that ballot initiative failed, we never had the opportunity to challenge it in court, but we were ready to.
Mayor, if I may ask a question.
Yes.
How many recreational licenses is on the list? The different types of recreational licenses have the state listed for recreational. I know that we're talking about a handful of, that can't be all the variables. I recall seeing things about licenses to have a party and a pop-up and all the other ones.
Outdoor events.
Outdoor events. And, I'm not saying, it sounds like all the licenses basically clone what is Colorado, as call that the far left. with the majority, where you can go get a candy bar from a machine and a pizza with it and have, it delivered and have a party. Do you know how many licenses the state has accounted for in recreational, number of different licenses?
So the last time I looked, Mr. Bosnick, do you know the exact number?
No.
The last time I looked, there were approximately 77 out there. 77 was the number, and that was a few weeks ago. I could look again tomorrow and give you an exact number if you'd like.
Okay. And our resolution is going to account for how many, Mr. Bosnick?
Mr. Through the mayor, there isn't a resolution. What's before the council tonight is basically directing our office to look into this and to see if we can craft something that would be consistent with the planning commission resolution on March 10th. It's going to take us some time to go through it. We've got to make sure that if there's any conflicts in the MMRMA with what the planning commission wants to do, that we're able to give you a ordinance that satisfies them and doesn't run afoul of any state regulations. And also, I was talking to Mr. Hitchcock about this yesterday. He tells me that on July 2nd, that the state regulations right now are going to expire July 2nd, or they're just temporary regulations, and we may be getting more regulations in July, more permanent ones or more long-standing ones. So he had indicated to me that it would probably make sense for us to see what happens with those before we craft anything for your review. And also before we craft anything, we probably want to have a workshop or do something where we can prepare a memo for everybody on council so they understand all the pros and all the cons, and then would be able to discuss that. So it's not like we're gonna have a resolution in the next meeting or next few meetings. It's gonna take us some time to work our way through this.
Okay. Thank you.
To the chair, Mr. Bosnick. So we need to make a decision here and have something in place by July 2nd. Is that my understanding? Or is there a deadline at some point where the state is just going to go in and say, well, you couldn't make the decision, we're making it for you?
Through the chair, no. What Mr. Hitchcock indicated to me is it may be wise for the city to see what the more permanent regulations are going to be on July 2nd, than to try to go under the gun and pass something that is going to run afoul of something that the state enacts a few months later. It's still very much a changing landscape, and now with COVID and the state's furloughing some employees, I don't know if they're going to extend the emergency regulations that are due to expire on July 2nd, or if they've been working on crafting new ones. This is all something that we're looking at closely.
Through the chair, so would we have the option of, if some new regulations came into place, that we would be able to, word I want to use is amend this ordinance?
They're still creating an ordinance. This is just to allow them to work on something. There's no ordinance in front of us.
Okay.
That's what we're giving them the ability to look at that. And he's saying it's going to take us.
I understand that, Mayor Racy. I understand that. I'm just asking down the road, after we do craft a ordinance, that we can, down the road, if the state does decide to add or delete any guidelines, that we'd be able to amend that ordinance as well to comply.
Through the chair, yeah, you could always amend your ordinances.
Okay, just want to take that out there. Thank you.
Any other roll call?
Mayor Pro Tem Porter,
Yes.
Councilman Miller,
Yes.
Councilman Webster,
Yes.
Councilwoman Skiff,
No.
Councilman Wagner,
No.
Councilman Dowd,
Yes.
Mayor Racy.
Yes.
Motion carries with 5 yeses and 2 nos. Item number 6 is administration reports.
City manager?
Good evening. That was not me typing. I was on mute, so I heard it even when I wasn't. So I just got a couple of things tonight. The city clerk had a couple of questions, if you don't mind, Madam City Clerk, if I start off with you. There were a couple of questions under citizen comments to be answered this meeting, if you wouldn't mind going ahead and answering those.
Sure. The first question was whether the March 10th, 2020 election had been certified by the Wayne County Board of Canvassers. And if so, what was the date? Yes, that was certified, and it was certified March 24th. And a copy of that information has been placed on the website. And the other question was, do we have a slate of candidates for mayor and council seats for our November election? If so, may we have that information? If this is not available at this time, please explain. So we do have a slate of candidates. There was the federal government issued a judgment to extend that filing deadline. And that was extended to April 8th for offices that do not, May 8th, I'm sorry, May 8th, that for offices that do not include the option for a filing fee. So that would have been us. And so that deadline was extended. And so now that has passed, and I can read off the slate of candidates. For mayor, 4-year, John P. Racy and Anthony Wayne Miller. City council, 4-year, Ward 1, Alfred L. Brock. City council, 4-year, Ward 2, Kevin J. Dowd. City council, 4-year, Ward 3, Tom Porter. And then if I may, Lisa, I just wanted to also talk a little bit about the upcoming election. As everyone probably knows, the Secretary of State issued a statement today that the state of Michigan would be sending applications for ballots for both the August election and the November election. That looks like a regular, it's a dual application actually, that you can choose August and November. She's sending those out to every registered voter in the state of Michigan. And, you know, I would encourage those to, you know, exercise your right to vote absentee. And also, many voters have already requested to be added to a permanent absentee voter list that I hold here in the city clerk's office. And if anyone would like to be added to that list, just call the office and we can certainly add you to that list. I look to have those applications mailed out to those who have requested to be on that list. Those applications are scheduled to go out May 26th. So you'll have those that I'm required to send out to permanent absentee voters, as well as the applications that the state is going to send out. So if you see two come, you only need to mail in one, but if you want to mail in both or drop off both, that's certainly fine. And I think that was all I have at this point. Thank you.
You know, could
Yes.
you also add to this? What do people do for the school board? Because I've seen some posts on that.
Yes, there's a contract with Wayne County and all the cities there regarding the school board. Actually, the city of Westland clerk is listed as the filing official. So those who want to file for the Wayne Westland School Board should file with the Westland City Clerk. He is the filing official. It's the municipality with the largest amount of voters within that school district. That's how they determine that. So that would definitely be Westland.
Through the chair,
We're still doing the report for city manager.
I apologize.
Okay.
Lisa?
Thank you. Through the chair. Just a few things. There was a question about the status of the court during citizen comments last week. What I can say is that as the council, 6 of the council members had requested, we are still working on the study, and it has taken a little bit of time. 2 things that I can say is that the state court administrator's office has been very helpful in providing caseload numbers, which has been great and very helpful so that we can have an accurate count. And the Katie, our finance director, Katie Sample, has been working with the court administrator on numbers to make sure that they're accurate and they're being reported correctly. Unfortunately, right now, a paid study by the state is not possible because of COVID. They've cut a lot of expenses. Fiscally distressed grants are probably not going to come out this year, where we have over $200,000 in technology requests. So we're doing the very best we can to make sure that the numbers are accurate, and we're going to the sources that actually could make, that actually would know if they're accurate or not. And just to be fair on the numbers, we're going back to 2018 and sampling numbers from April of 2018 until this year, because of the fact that COVID has cut down the caseload and cut down revenue extensively to the court, devastating almost. And so that's where we're at, and we're just going to continue on the study. If you haven't noticed, well, you wouldn't have noticed because you're not, if you come by to pay a bill outside or put your bill in the drop box, you'll notice if you've been by City Hall that the other day the Public Works Department did put a board outside that we can use to post all of our postings. The city clerk and I talked, and there's just too many postings on the front door, and it's almost maddening to try to keep up with all of them. So this large board is just north of the drop-off mailbox on this side, on the City Hall side. And we have 3 sections. The city clerk has a section for postings, City Hall and city meetings and other information. And we also have a posting area for under the executive order for all of the changes. For instance, we have on there that the posting about the parks, still park playgrounds still being closed. We have the posting about how landscaping and lawn mowing is back and allowable, and we're asking the residents certainly to keep up with that. And then the other item that is in there is about the court and the 29th District Court operations. If anybody has any questions, we also have information about bill pay. We'll be updating that soon. And so, I mean, I think you get the gist of it, but we wanted to offer an opportunity for individuals not to, to have an ability to see everything and not have to bend up and down to see everything like they do with the doors right now. So I think it was a great addition. We will be submitting that for reimbursement under the next FEMA round because it does have to do with COVID. When we are done with it, we will likely transfer it into City Hall to replace the current board and then make it transferable outside if need be, if we have to do this again, God willing, we do not. There was also, I wanted to give you an update on a few of the grants. We had $27,000 that we ended up submitting for under FEMA. We actually ended up submitting for 37, but there were only 25% of that has to be a match. So we are probably likely going to be considered more so in the first round for 27,000. I don't think that's actually going to hurt us because we did receive grant money in other areas to offset some costs. We did also apply under the Assistance for Firefighters grants for about $28,000 for personal protection equipment for the fire department, and that is for the future in preparation so that we have some stock in a stockpile at the department of items that have a long shelf life. So we are getting prepared for that as well. Thank goodness that we have those opportunities. A very good, an excellent thing that came out is that if you recall, we applied for the SAFER grant, the SAFER hiring grant in the past for firefighters. Unfortunately, we bypassed that SAFER grant the last few years because in the beginning, they were covering the firefighters when we first had the SAFER grant, first couple of them, they were covering them 100% for a period of 3 years. We could not, eventually they changed it to 35% all the way up to 65% that the city would have to pay for. So that just wasn't feasible for the city. However, recently, last week, we got an announcement that not only is the SAFER grant being extended, they are waiving all of the match dollars for the SAFER. So that is excellent. So I'm working with Kathy Luckenhoff at the department and Deputy Chief Schneider and Chief Stratner on applying for 7 firefighters. So I think this is a great opportunity. And the thing is that the city does not have to keep the firefighters hired. It is not one of those, it's not like the COPS grant where if you do apply, you have to keep them hired. So certainly if we have attrition or anything that happens, we have firefighters potentially that could end up staying. It could be, take the places of those who may decide to retire in the next few years. So that's an excellent, that was a really, that was great to hear that, because we could no longer afford the match dollars on that grant. The last thing I just wanted to say, a couple of things. The memorial, Mayor, if I may, thank you for announcing that earlier. This has been a lot of work. This memorial has been a lot of work, but I will say that we have received donations from across the country. One came in from Kennesaw, Georgia today. And it's great just to see how many people have donated. There is a list on the Facebook page. I do plan to read off that entire list at the next meeting. Today is the last day to donate. And as the mayor said, we raised $35,000. I know that we got a few more donations since that have dinged in since we've been at this council meeting. And I just can't say enough just how awesome it was that everybody stepped up. Our business community, our residents, the citizens, neighboring communities, everybody stepped up to make this a reality. And with the amount of money we raised, this is going to be a pretty darn awesome memorial. So I want to thank everybody who donated, and I want to also thank the committee who worked so hard. Ed, Mike, Lori, Mayor Pro Tem Porter, Mayor Racy, Chris Miller, Alfred Brock. I mean, UAW local is 845. Mike Smith from local 900. It's just been great, and it really came together. And I think everybody's going to be very proud once this project takes off. So we'll have a little update on when we're going to break ground on that project soon. The last thing I just wanted to do is thank Katie and Brian and Laura from Plant Brand as well. It's easy to criticize the work that we do on the budget when times aren't good. It is disheartening to hear the constant the commentary about we don't trust the budget, or I don't trust the budget, or I don't think that things are being done right. These individuals and myself carry a lot of integrity when it comes to this budget. And in fact, this budget is audited every single year. And so I think it's very disheartening to hear that, especially in light of the fact that the person who keeps saying this never calls to ask questions. Never calls to ask questions, get clarification, likes to just throw these insinuations at us, likes to just, push at the staff and make us, feel bad. And, but it's not working. We're going to continue. I want to thank the 6 council members who did support the budget. That was not an easy thing to do tonight. This is one of our most difficult budgets, but I do want to tell you that a ton of work was put in, effort was put into this. So I want to just thank you for that. And I certainly hope that we can continue to move forward, work together, support one another, and try to get through these trying times. And when the sun comes out again and COVID is gone, hopefully we're going to be in a better place. So thank you for the time this evening, and I wish everybody well.
Thank you.
Public comments for matters not on the agenda pursuant to the Michigan Open Meetings Act and the enacted procedures and rules of City Council. Now is the time for public comment. Any questions will not be answered this evening, but the appropriate person will make their best effort to respond by the next council meeting or as soon as possible, provided you state or leave your contact information with the city clerk. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. And before we open that up, I did have one called in to me, a comment. If I could go ahead and read that, Mayor.
Yes.
It was from Miss Kathy Rockwell, and she had a suggestion that we place the agenda on the public access station. She feels that a lot of people go there for information, and that would be a place where they could see the agenda and they would be able to come up with some questions on the agenda in the future. And that was all I had from call-in comments.
Okay, so if any of the attendees would want to raise their hand at this time, if you're on a telephone, you hit *9 to raise your hand, and then it'll be *6 when I call on you. Okay. Good evening, Susan. Are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes, my question is, why is the DDA not funding the balance of the $25,000 that they had approved in their budget last year for the Wayne Main Street. And I would like to have an answer at the next council meeting. Thank you.
I'm gonna be calling on 313 and 55 is the last numbers in the phone number. Caller, are you there?
Yep, this is Kim White Jenkins from Elm Street, and I
Hi,
have
Kim.
some comments to make. Can you hear me?
Yes. Good evening, Kim.
To make about the marijuana ordinance, looking into the ordinance. And my major question is, if we didn't want the money, if we didn't need the money, not that it's even a lot of money, would we even be looking to do this, to allow current medical marijuana facilities to also offer recreational? And for example, the argument that we owe our residents because they voted overwhelmingly in Wayne for recreational marijuana legalization, the argument that we owe them recreational marijuana, and maybe owe is not a word that you use, but that's how I interpreted it, is false. Because Wayne residents may have voted to approve recreational marijuana at the state level, but I don't believe the city council is responsible to respond to that at a city level, especially when, if I want recreational marijuana, I can go to Inkster. I don't think the city has an obligation to its citizens because of the number of people in Wayne who voted for recreational marijuana. The other thing I think would be worthwhile looking into is what would be our expenses once we approve recreational marijuana. We already heard that there may be traffic issues. There's cars lined up in a parking lot. There may be other enforcement issues. And I think someone needs to look into possible expenses that would offset that extra $40,000. And I also don't think we owe it to the current businesses that came in with vending medical marijuana. They took a risk not knowing that recreational marijuana would be approved here, and they should be just fine running their businesses, diversifying even within medical marijuana for those people that have those medical licenses. But I just don't believe that the city owes it to their residents to have recreational marijuana. And finally, regarding the council members who dissented, I admire you for doing that. And I believe that council members should vote with their head and with their heart. And I think that an impact of allowing recreational marijuana, and honestly, as we have with allowing medicinal, brands our city. And I think if we have a concern regarding the city's brand, that's using our heart and our head, and being cautious about what we want to, how we want our city to be branded. And I admire any council member who has a concern about that and will dissent on expanding marijuana because they're concerned about our city's brand. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have a comment tonight? Okay. Seeing none, go ahead and move the agenda.
Item number 7 is the consent calendar, and I can go ahead and read off as a group here. There's quite a few minutes that need to be approved. A being Wayne Public Library Board minutes of July 2018 through December 2019 and March and April of 2019. And B being Wayne Housing Commission minutes of March 11th, 2020. And C being Wayne Planning Commission minutes of March 10th, 2020. And then D being Wayne Election Commission minutes of October 30th, 2018 and January 21st, 2020.
Can I get a motion?
Move to approve.
Support.
Can I just ask a question, Mayor?
Mm-hmm.
Why are we approving things from 2018 and it's 2020?
Going through the minutes, it was discovered that there were some library board minutes that had never made it to the agenda. Sometimes those slip through the cracks. And then as far as the election commission minutes, the election commission minutes have to be approved at the next election commission. And because we only have elections every 2 years, that's one of the items on the agenda is the previous minutes from the last meeting, the last time they met. So that's why those are there.
Thank you.
Okay. Roll call.
Mayor Pro Tem Porter,
Yes.
Councilman Miller,
Yes.
Councilman Webster, Councilman Webster,
Yes.
Councilwoman Skiff,
Yes.
Councilman Wagner,
Yes.
Councilman Dowd, Mayor Racy.
Yes. And I'm going to back up because we missed the comments from the city council. So, Councilwoman Skiff,
Yes, we did miss that. Sorry about that.
no problem.
Want me to go first?
Yes.
Okay. I do just want to address a comment that was made tonight about a vote that was taken, and before the vote was taken, it was mentioned that we need to leave our personal feelings out of it and vote for the betterment of the city. And the reason I feel as strongly as I do about the vote, about my no vote, and that is because I don't believe it is for the betterment of the city. And that is more than my personal feelings about it, whether I use it or not, or I choose to use it or not, okay? It's more than that. It's about, do I think that this is good and what is best for the families in the city? And my answer to that is no. And that is why I voted no. My personal feelings, yes, I do have personal feelings about it, but more so, I'm worried about the families in our community. And when I look at something like this being adopted in our city, and I ask myself, is this for the betterment of the families in our city? My answer is no. And that is why I voted no. And I'm just going to leave it at that. The next thing I just wanted to say is, before tonight's meeting, I went on and wanted to post some instructions on how, if you wanted to attend the Zoom meeting tonight, how you might go about doing that. And the only thing I really found, the best thing I found to do was to go on the city website, dig through the agenda and look on, page 4 of the agenda. I was wondering if maybe we can, there's something that can be done. It can be posted. The instructions can be posted on our Facebook page and also maybe on the city website, like the first page, so that it's not so difficult. We had a public hearing tonight and there was one person on here that was here for the public hearing. And that, to me, I understand that we're made to do this till the end of June. But if we want people to attend our Zoom meetings, we need to make it easy for them to access. And I personally would like it to be easy for me to post that on my council page to give people instructions. So if the city manager could do that for us, or whomever's in charge of our website as well, if that could be done, I would really appreciate it. Also just wanted to say great news about our firefighters, 2 of our firefighters who are doing better and back on the job. That is great news. We hear a lot of numbers of the people who are not doing well after they, who are passing after they contract the virus. And it's such great news to hear that 2 of our firefighters are doing well and back on the job. And with that, I'll close. Thank you.
Councilman Wagner,
Thank you. Nothing tonight.
Councilman Miller.
Thank you, Mayor Racy. First of all, I want to remind everybody that our community and our state is slowly starting to open up. And I want to remind everybody that we need to continue to use social distancing and using a a protection mask, so that we don't go backwards with this, and we can continue to move forward slowly, cautiously, use common sense in order for us to move forward out of this crisis that we're having. Next, I also want to thank the individuals that did contribute for the Veterans Memorial. Outstanding. I think this is going to be wonderful to see here in our community. I also want to point out that we've had a very robust past years of developing all kinds of activities in our community, and unfortunately, at this time, because of this protocols that we have in place right now, it's more challenging. But I'm going to ask residents to be creative. We can continue to find ways of having some social activities, if it's biking or other things. I'm sure there's ideas out there. We just got to apply ourselves to it and be able to create. We're not able to go to any more Wayne Museum presentations and all these things that got so much more improved in our community. And unfortunately, it's all at a standstill right now because of it. But I'm just encouraging everybody to continue to practice these safe measures. Also, I want to address the city manager's concern, and I appreciate your comments. But I am not questioning the integrity of your work and the ones that have worked on this budget, first of all. My concern is how we are appropriating the funds that we are already receiving in this budget. The residents are asking, they're wrapping their minds around the fact that it's costing approximately $15.5 million to provide basic services for 4 square miles. Okay, and we're soon to be either asked to vote for another millage or being assessed another taxation. So I'm not attacking any of the integrity of your work. I am putting the spotlight and focusing on how we are using the funds that we currently have available to maximize and to provide some sort of relief. I don't think we've ever had that discussion on this council. Is how can we ease the burden of taxation for our residents? We're a council made up of residents, and yet we've never had that discussion. I think it's time that we do. And I know that the protocol for that is to put that in writing. I most certainly will. And I would ask for support for that to be on an upcoming meeting as well. And with that, I will pass.
Wow, who do I choose? Councilman Dowd, I'm going to go first. Councilman Dowd.
I had to make sure my speaker was on. Thank you, Mayor.
Is that your baby, Councilman Dowd?
What's that?
Is that your baby?
This is Penny Dowd, licensed resident of Wayne, transplant from Illinois. I just want to thank everybody that did that collaborated and put together, put the numbers that are not popular, the budget, and get it in front of us and to say what needed to be said, and all the information that's been posted about very clearly where we are. We're not wearing rose-colored glasses at this point. We have hard decisions to make, and to the staff and to our parties that have helped us, I really appreciate that personally, and thank you. On a personal note, I just want to say preemptively, I hope for a Wayne resident that happens to be my daughter, Chelsea. She's going in for her to have my second grandchild. I'm going to be a grandfather of another girl at probably, how C-sections go, 2:00 tomorrow. So I just wanted to put it out there and say, God bless you. I love you, daughter. I love both my granddaughters. I can't wait to see my new granddaughter Baby Z. All I know is she's gonna have a name that starts with a Z. That's all I know at this point. So with that, I'll pass.
Councilman Webster.
First, I want to congratulate Councilman Dowd on his incoming grandbaby. That's always exciting. So congratulations. Everybody's been asking about the man himself. So see if I can get him on here.
There's a man in the corner.
This is Jameson. When we left our meeting last week, he came at 4:22 a.m. He's very healthy. He was 8 pounds, 9 ounces, 21 inches long. He's doing very well. He sleeps throughout the night, so that is generally pretty nice. I've had a lot of people ask me, you know, what our experience at Beaumont was, and well, it was fantastic. You know, they treated us great. They were very attentive. You know, it was very similar to the experience we had with our son many years ago. So I would say nothing's really changed. That staff on the second floor is great. I know they're all ecstatic to be back. I know obviously they're still working to get everything up and running fully, but they're working hard to make it happen. So he was the first baby born. There was another one that was on the floor, but they weren't born until early morning on the 6th. So he was the first one born at the new hospital, which was very exciting. And with that, I just want to thank everyone that worked on the memorial project. You know, there was that real big final push, and we actually exceeded our goals, which is fantastic. But everyone that worked on it, I know you put a lot of work into it. City manager, Lori, Tom, you know, you guys did a tremendous amount of work to make this happen, and it would not have happened without all the legwork that you put into it. So thank you. I look forward to seeing it when it's finally done. And with that, I'll pass.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say thank you to everybody that donated to the Veterans Memorial. As everybody knows, it's a project that's really close to my heart, and I want to thank Lisa especially for coordinating the whole thing and getting the patron city thing in. It's going to make a big difference. That extra couple of dollars is going to be big. So I want to answer part of what Kim said. What we were talking about tonight is directing the attorney to investigate and look at rewriting the ordinance on marijuana. In light of the past ballot initiatives that just happened an election or two ago, I feel it is my duty, knowing what the vote was in Wayne and knowing, having already talked to people who have talked to attorneys about writing a ballot initiative to have certain things, certain marijuana things in the city, I feel it is definitely my duty to vote for and bring this up so that our attorneys can look at it. Do I want them to rewrite the whole ordinance and then turn it down and we lose that money? Absolutely not. But on the other hand, we need guidance, and I'm hoping that we can talk to the attorneys during this whole process, and if we decide no, we can say no. We were not voting on an ordinance tonight. We were only voting on directing the attorneys to look at it. There's the big problem. People get the misconception that we were voting to allow marijuana. No, we weren't. We were directing the attorney to look at and investigate. I guess I probably spoke out wrongly in accusing people of their own personal feelings. I know I use my personal feelings quite often, and that was wrong of me, and I apologize. But this is something that, just think, if you vote no, and there was one, and I know it was outlandish, they voted for like 22 marijuana dispensaries in a 2 square mile town. That's how stupid these ballot initiatives can become. And I don't want anything like that going in front of our voters. I have talked to many people that use marijuana, and more than one of them has told me they've already spoken to their attorney. When are you going to get it on the agenda, Tom? Because we're going forward with it. I do not want that to happen in Wayne. I want us to use our capabilities and our ordinances to structure it in a structured form, not just wherever. Having said that, I'll drop that subject. And that is a heartfelt apology. I'm sorry. I misspoke. I should never have said that. I want to welcome back one more firefighter. We now have 2 back. Hopefully everybody's family and the rest of them can come back very shortly. We need them all. We need our firefighters. The ones that are working are doing a tremendous job, but we need them all back on board. Thank you. That's all tonight, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. I got a few things. Again, thank you to the committee and everybody that donated to the memorial. Our city manager and Lori and Ed were working phones. Ed and Lori were weeks ago working phones and helping us get the original, and we kind of got it pushed over the last few days. I think when you have a deadline, it gets people the urgency and wanting to participate, which I just think it's great that you just, when you think about, we're in the middle of a pandemic and people still wanted to donate to try to make something like this happen in our community. I think that's a really good sign that of things to come. I wanted to just make a comment on the SAFER grant that the city manager spoke about. Our Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib is the one that's been championing that, and she should get credit for that. She's the one that it came up when the Inkster firefighter chief brought that to her attention, and she started working on that legislation and got other people involved. But she was spearheading that, and that's our congressperson working for us. And I thought that was appropriate to mention that, because she is working very hard for us. I do have to say the one thing about Rashida. I've been on the council 9 years now, and she's more accessible, does more things for our community than I've ever seen the entire time I was on council before she got on into that position. So I've told her that I appreciate what she's trying to do for our community. Every little bit helps, and it's great to have a good relationship with a congresswoman and what she's doing and trying to help our community. So thank you to Rashida for that. A couple things from, I think I have Zoom calls. Well, I know I have Zoom calls. Seems like every day, at least 1 or 2 these days. We have a standing call with the county that I'm on, and one of the things that they mentioned this morning was that Garden City Hospital is going to be housing a unit that is a testing unit for COVID. They're in the process of having this happen. It's going to be happening shortly. When it actually is up and running, we'll be notified. But the county has purchased their own testing equipment, and it's going to be administered through Garden City Hospital for people that want to get a test, looking for both of the types of testing that's available. But it's outside the box thing, because right now you have to have a doctor's note, and you just can't find out currently. So that's something to be looking forward to, there's plans for that coming up. The state also allocated money for testing. As I think most people know, that nursing homes have been an issue and prisons have been a big issue for COVID, people contracting COVID. And we were found out this morning that the state they're first testing the prisoners, and then they're going into the nursing homes and testing. They've got a list of all the Wayne County nursing homes, and they're going to be testing all those, and that's starting. To try to help figure out what's going on in our nursing homes, which I think is very important. Let's see, I had a couple other things. We had meeting with the DDA, and I wanted to, I think this is really great. The DDA has allocated some funding from this year's budget to be helping to help businesses with the dealing with COVID and trying to reopen their businesses. That was a directive that they had at their last meeting to try to get. We want to see ideas coming to the DDA on how to help the community reopen. That's really important. Having all these other things don't really matter right now when businesses are closed. The big thing right now is we got to figure out how we get our businesses back operational and trying to get our community back as we're allowed to get things running. I've reached out to numerous business owners and I've had having conversations and seeing how things are doing and getting some different ideas and they're I think that everybody I've talked to is really looking at ways to how to better their business and trying to figure out how to combat with what is going on. I had a conversation with our state rep today, Kevin Coleman. We've got the theater. They've already got a plan that they've been working out with other theaters and how to reopen theaters right now. And so we're trying to see what we can do to help him get connected to the governor, and hopefully we can get him on a committee to work on how to reopen theaters, because he has a plan. And that was one of the things that in the governor's directive, she wants to see plans. And I know that there is plans being worked on, and I know for sure that Corey Jacobson has a plan put together, and knowing Corey, it's very, very comprehensive and very thought out. And being an owner that has multiple locations and all different sizes, I think he's a great person that could really help in this situation. So I'm hoping that that they listen to him and let him work on that. And then I guess there's just one other thing I wanted to talk about. It's kind of concerning. There was comments that we need to be talking about tax breaks for our citizens right now. I just think that is absolutely ridiculous, unfortunately, to be even having that conversation after we just approved a budget that we're short. If you don't understand that we've had a $22,000 budget, $2 million budget, and now we're at $15.5 million, you need to look and understand what's going on. I mean, you're voting no on these budgets, and you're not really paying attention to what's going on. To make a comment like that, it's just irresponsible. And it's really
Point of order.
No,
Point of order.
No, actually, no. I have my time. You had yours, and it's wrong, Tony. It's absolutely wrong to say that up to the community that we should be looking at those types of things. It's not the right thing to do. So with that, can we get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.